Now, whether Albert Einstein actually said this exact phrase, well, who knows, right? It almost doesn't matter anymore because the truth of it resonates so deeply. We really need to shatter this myth that compounding is just some boring chapter hidden at the back of a finance textbook. No way. It's an active, relentless, colorful engine. Your money doesn't just sit there. Eventually, it starts growing more money faster than you could ever earn it yourself.
But that begs the question. If it's literally a world wonder, why on earth do we all ignore it until it's way too late? The answer is just basic human psychology. We're totally wired to crave instant gratification. We want visible progress right now. But compounding? It hides its magic in the shadows for years. We drastically overestimate what we can pull off in 1 year and tragically underestimate the sheer explosive power of 30 years of quiet consistency.
Okay, let's move into our first piece of the puzzle, the deception of small beginnings. To really get this, picture the classic ancient chessboard story. A wise scholar asks a king for a super simple reward, just one single grain of rice on the first square of a chessboard, doubled on every square after that. 1 grain, then 2, then 4, 8. You get the idea. The king just smiled. He thought the scholar's request was entirely harmless, maybe even a little foolish. Even after 10 whole squares, the total is only 512 grains of rice. The king underestimated the future because the beginning looked entirely too small to matter.
But then, bam, suddenly things change. By the 20th square, we cross 5 lakh grains. And by the 32nd square, the math becomes violently powerful. We're talking billions of grains appearing out of nowhere. By the time you hit the 64th square, the amount is so massive it's larger than what entire kingdoms could ever supply. Exponential growth eventually breaks the scale of reality. It starts as a tiny whisper and ends as an absolute avalanche.
Which brings us to the mechanics of time. Look, compounding does not care about your emotions. It really doesn't care if you're feeling excited or bored or anxious. It only cares about your time and your consistency. So let's look at a very standard reality for an everyday investor. A 10,000 rupee monthly systematic investment plan, an SIP, into an asset delivering a 12% annual return.
Just look at the timeline here. After 10 years, you've got roughly 23 lakhs. Not bad, right? After 20 years, it's roughly 1 crore. After 30 years, 3.5 crores. And by 40 years, it literally explodes to between 11 and 12 crores. This proves unequivocally that duration is the ultimate multiplier. Think about it. You aren't doing anything differently in year 40 than you did in year 1, but the results are just worlds apart.
It's the exact same discipline, but it creates wildly different realities depending entirely on the decade. The first 10 years, they feel agonizingly slow. The second decade becomes super exciting as you finally hit that crore. The third is completely transformative to your lifestyle. And the fourth, it is utterly unbelievable. Time literally changes the entire scale of your reality. And that leads us perfectly into reaching escape velocity. This reveals why simply surviving the market's ups and downs is vastly more important than picking the absolute perfect fund. The wealthy understand something that the average person totally misses. Compounding hates interruption. If you hold on long enough, you reach this magical state called escape velocity. This is that spectacular turning point where your money stops growing in a boring straight line and just starts accelerating. Dividends generate new investments. Returns create larger returns. Assets start buying other assets. The machine finally starts feeding itself. And suddenly, your money is working infinitely harder than you are. Let me give you a mind-bending example to show just how violently powerful starting early is. Consider 2 friends. Friend 1 invests just 5,000 rupees a month starting at age 22, but then stops completely at 32. Friend 2 waits, starts at 32, and invests every single month until age 60. Crazy enough, in many scenarios, Friend 1 still ends up with comparable or even greater wealth despite investing significantly less total money. The tree planted earlier almost always defeats the tree planted aggressively later. Time just matters so much more than the amount. And hey, if you need proof from the absolute top, check out this fun surprise. The overwhelming majority of Warren Buffett's legendary wealth was actually accumulated after his 50th birthday. He didn't suddenly become vastly smarter or uncover some secret magic formula at age 50. What actually happened was his decades of unshakable patience simply hit that vibrant, magical escape velocity.
All right, moving on to the multiplier of everything. Look at how persistence turns into total dominance in everyday life. A small shop that improves customer trust daily, that trust compounds. A YouTube creator uploading consistently, audience trust compounds. Even corporate giants, look at Apple or Amazon. We see their trillion-dollar valuations today and assume they were always massive, right? But they started as tiny, unassuming operations in garages. Compounding turned their relentless daily persistence into absolute global dominance. Even your own brain does this. Knowledge totally compounds. A person who spends decades learning communication, tech, investing, and negotiation isn't just memorizing a list of facts. Those small skills overlap, they combine, and they accumulate into massive economic leverage. You become economically more valuable almost on autopilot just by staying in the game of learning. Let's bring this all together now with the ultimate metamorphosis. Compounding actually alters your identity over time. Think about it. In phase 1, you identify as someone just trying to save money. It's a struggle. But eventually in phase 2, you become someone whose money actively generates freedom. And by phase 3, you have ultimate control over your time. You transition from mere financial survival to having the absolute power to reject bad jobs, support your family fully, and take bold, colorful risks. The media loves to celebrate those flashy billionaire headlines, the luxury yachts, and overnight startup acquisitions. But the reality of lasting wealth is so much quieter. Hidden beneath lasting wealth are simply years of invisible, ironclad consistency. It's quiet SIPs, reinvested profits, unshakable patience when the market is crashing. It's the simple endurance of ignoring all the noise and staying in the game when everyone else panics. Tiny, disciplined actions, repeated long enough, begin to produce outcomes that appear literally impossible to people who only understand linear growth. Compounding, in its most vibrant, ultimate form, isn't really about luxury at all. When you reach that final stage, something psychological shifts. Your money doesn't feel like a paycheck anymore. It feels like accumulated time. It's your past patience crystallized. It converts your lifelong discipline directly into present-day power and total freedom. Compounding is not just some neat strategy. It is a direction you choose early and a discipline you fiercely refuse to break. So ask yourself, are you sitting on the sidelines letting time slowly work against you? Or are you finally ready to start small, stay consistent, and harness the eighth wonder of the world? The chessboard is waiting for your first grain of rice.